Tell me when we're good.
Yeah, it just takes a moment for it to start up. Let's see. It looks like. All right, that should be good. We're online.
All right, I'd like to call to order this regularly scheduled Board of Finance meeting Wednesday, April 8th. We can all start by the Pledge of Allegiance. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. All right. Public comment. We haven't had any. Correct?
I don't believe so.
It looks like Rich would like to make a comment, so I'm unmuting him now.
Okay.
All right, Rich.
Yeah, hi, Rich Saluga, 32 Great Heron Lane. Just wanted to thank the Board of Finance, as I thanked the Board of Selectmen the other night for extending the deadline for the budget process. I would hope, despite the comments that I heard last week at the Board of Finance meeting, I would hope that the Board of Finance would reconsider looking at the budget, particularly on the expense side. I know that you've indicated that you're going to look at the revenue side and try to bring down the mill rate, but a 3.5% plus mill rate increase is really tough, particularly for seniors. I also have some concerns about the Board of Ed. I think I've shared that with both the Board of Ed as well as with the Board of Finance. I didn't see my correspondence on your agenda, but I know it came this morning, so that might have been too late. If you could add that. And again, my attempt with that correspondence was really just try to be more specific about where the savings could be. When I listen to some of the meetings, it becomes very nebulous. Oh, I think we might have something here, or I think we might have something there. And what I tried to do is look at the accounts, assuming that school was not going to be in session until after the summer, looking at the accounts that really had nothing to do with salaries, because I don't have paperwork, I don't have details on salaries, staff vacancies and whatnot. But all the other things that I mentioned in terms of tutors, coaches, student safety salaries, overtime, tuition, etc., there's a lot of money there that's available in the budget as of the end of February. I'm sure that there's an update on some of those numbers, given the fact that we were in school in March, but at least part of March. But there's a lot of money there. There's a lot of money in what they call the frozen accounts, because they didn't freeze the whole account. They only froze part of the account. And those accounts are still open and still available money. So you got another couple $100,000 there. So based on what I've looked at, without even including salaries, and I know that's up in the air because of some of the executive orders, who gets paid, who doesn't get paid. But you're looking at, a good 600 to $1 million in savings. And I think that could go a long way in terms of, I don't want it just dumped in the general fund. I think you can use that to decrease the mill rate and maybe even take a look at next year's budget. I think giving $2 million to the Board of Ed is just unacceptable. So thanks very much for hearing me out. I'll close out, and unless anybody has any questions on the correspondence, and I'll listen to the rest of the meeting.
Thanks, Rich. Thank you very much. Okay, let's go on to communications.
Sorry about that. Yes, we had several. Fred Ball, Ron Jaffe, Ron Rudanis, Laura Orban, Jerry Friedrich, Rose DeMarco, Dan Dvorsitz, Dottie Dory, and Vitorino Lopez.
Perfect. All right, on to the meeting minutes.
Okay, we have 5 to approve: March 10th, 11th, March 17th and 18th, and April 1st.
I'll make a motion to approve those minutes as stated. I'll second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Passes. All right. On to you, Mr. Steve.
Yeah, hi guys. Thanks for doing this. Seems to be working pretty well. As you know, we had the Board of Selectmen meeting on Monday the same way. That worked pretty well. At that meeting, the Board of Selectmen did give the Board of Finance another 30 days to set the budget and set a mill rate. I think it bears repeating that the Board of Selectmen nor the Board of Finance has any choice on this. The governor has issued an executive order to have the Board of Selectmen mandate that you pick a budget and set a mill rate. Having another 30 days helps us in a way that we on the town side, and I know that Rosa and John and Ken Post on the Board of Ed side are looking at ways we can save money. Where do we have any savings? Can we make the savings? Marcia's going to go over some numbers for you where we think we can have some savings this year in this year's budget that we could use to offset next year's budget. These are all one-time saves, but given the situation we're in right now, nobody's doing any traveling. We're trying to cut down on everything. And so she'll give you a description of that in greater detail. Town Hall is still closed. The building is closed for safety reasons. We do have staff in the building. They're working from 10 to 3. And when they're not working from 10 to 3, they are working from home. We've had to buy computers to allow people to work from home, but that's working really, really well. We had a meeting today with FEMA on the disaster declaration. They're only doing the one section. It's the emergency supplies. It's really complicated, but they're doing one section. And so it looks like we'll be eligible for 75% of our expenses plus management costs. As you know, we've implemented a system called Code Red. I sent our second message out today, and how that works is you'll get a message, a text, a voicemail, and an email if you so choose. We asked residents to sign up for it. It's an opt-in program only. We're not going to be pushing this out to anyone if they don't want it. I do have to say, this is different than the reverse 911 system that the police use. They use that and can push out messages automatically to every single phone in Brookfield, and it's identified as such. This is an informational system, and it seems to be working pretty well. As we move forward, we have 90 cases of coronavirus as of today in Brookfield. Thankfully, we have no deaths. We do not know when this is going to be over. You hear different stories back and forth. In an abundance of caution, we've closed all the parks. For the most part, we are still allowing people to walk at the track if they keep safe distance. That's for residents only, we hope. And that's my report. Any questions, concerns? Oh, one more thing. Brookfield Recovers is a program that Ellen Melville came to me with about a week and a half ago. And we set up a fund where people can donate so that we can assist other residents who are having trouble, either they're laid off, their hours have been cut. It's been a very popular program. We had 60 families come by Town Hall yesterday to pick up food. So if anyone can donate, we'd appreciate that donation. It could be used now. The second thing is we've had more people call and ask to volunteer than we can use right now. So we're keeping those people's names, but it just shows you what Brookfield's like. I mean, when times get tough, Brookfield pulls together. So that's the end of my report.
Thanks, Steve. Thank you very much.
Steve, one question
Yeah,
on that reverse 911 or whatever that program is that
Yeah.
we opt in. I tried to opt in. It wouldn't recognize my address. Have you heard from other people? So it didn't let me do it.
yeah. I've heard from one other person who was trying to use it, was like a 28 and a 28A.
Yep.
It doesn't need to know your specific address. So if you share an address with a neighbor, try a different number.
Okay.
It does geolocating. So if you're 50 feet off, it's not going to make a difference. But if people have a problem with it, they can either change their address slightly, right? Or call us and we'll try to help you walk through it. The other thing is, for people, we had one person complain that it was too difficult for them to sign up. Will we please put the notices up on the town website? So if you go to the town website, on the very bottom, the notices are there. The last 5 updates will be there, and it'll keep updating automatically.
Perfect. Anybody else for Steve? Marcia, your dime now. Are you there, Marcia?
Her microphone's muted.
Dan, are you
Sorry,
muting?
I am unmuted now and I'm
Got it.
working on sharing my screen. Can you hear me?
Yep, we can hear you.
All right. So just going through the presentation for tonight that we want the expenditures and we want to talk about this, that it's a very fluid situation on the whole budget because we don't know how long we're going to be shut down. We did do some estimates assuming that we were going to be shut down through May, and we're still getting feedback. This is through March 31st. It's only the 8th now. We're still getting some feedback from the departments. So it's that those are our best guesses as of today. But we had budget meetings for the March year to date during March. We discussed the standing of their budget as we normally do every quarter. We discussed the effects of COVID-19. That we do have some extra costs, that we put in a budget of $130,000 for now. A lot of that is extra EMS. They put on an extra shift and supplies that are needed. That it seems like every town's spending the money on about the same thing after having 4 hours of teleconferences today. We summarized the meetings into the budget to actual, and then we sent them out again to say, if you made it hurt a little bit, how much could you save? Plus, we're taking all your conference money, plus we're taking half your office supply money. That we don't want to lose the savings from being short here on, not being open to the public, not doing a lot of these things. So that's how we developed the estimates. And what we're thinking is that whatever we can save this year, we use to offset taxes next year. We don't want to do an additional appropriation during the year. The way we would do it would be to, let's say we saved $400,000 this year. What I would recommend we do it is we put that in the capital non-recurring fund, the cash for the capital account. That then next year, if we had $2 million in there as an approved budget, we only fund $2 million minus the $400,000 that we had extra this year. That because it would already be sitting in there. I like that idea because it doesn't, it's not an additional appropriation. I don't like that idea because it's only a one-time savings. So let's say we have the equivalent of $250,000 that goes in there, or $500,000. We just want to remember that if we balance the budget without this one time, when we get to the year-end 2022 budget, we're already going to need the $500,000 or whatever that is just to stay the way we are. But we do have some significant savings from 3 major areas. One is just normal savings that, from things like we refinance some debt. We, I forgot what the other ones are there. It doesn't look like we're going to need our contingency. So those types of savings. We have a second bucket that is savings from being on the shutdown that we're expecting to be over $100,000 of savings. And then we have a third bucket in that we're very lucky that we had a very warm winter and low fuel prices, so that they also are a significant savings for us. When we look at the revenues, that just looking through them, and I don't have a summary put together yet of revenues, that the tax collections, they were already significantly completed for the year, that for the tax portion. The interest on the taxes is going to be reduced, that and the way it's going to be reduced is showing up on this screen, that for the stuff that's outstanding, the taxes that are outstanding now, if someone pays their taxes in April, or for the April, the interest rate is dropped from 1.5%, the equivalent of 18% a year, to 0.25%, which is the equivalent of 3% a year. So April, May, and June, if they make a payment on their back taxes in one of those 3 months, they'll get a reduced interest rate. Well, I don't know how many that's going to happen to, because if you couldn't pay your taxes before, you're probably not going to be able to pay them now.
Can I jump in real quick, Marcia, just on one
Yes.
thing? At the Board of Selectmen meeting on Monday, we had a choice of implementing this program or another program which would delay the collection of taxes, or both. And the Board of Selectmen chose this as the middle of the road that will give some people help, but not really destroy our revenue stream. Sorry, go ahead, Marcia.
Okay. So this is for the taxes that are due now, that we would have a lower interest rate if they paid it in April, May, or June. If they wait till July to pay their back taxes, it reverts back to 1.5% per month. So they have to pay their taxes in those 3 months to get this benefit. For next year's budget, that there's already no taxes in July. If you pay your taxes in August, there's already no interest in July. If you pay your taxes in August, you always get hit with 2 months of interest, August and July. So instead of being a 3%, it's a 0.5%, because that's 2 0.25%. And then September is a 0.25%, the interest rate, if you pay it in July, August, or September. If you don't pay it, again, this one reverts back to the 1.5% per month. Just a few things: it's not eligible for landlords. There's no documentation, but you should be prepared to be audited, and that's a decision we'll have to make on what we do about that. Let's see how many people sign up for this. A landlord, if you you can't be making money on this as a landlord. So that's the way the system works. And then when we tried to quantify how much money that would be, last year, this is the interest that we collected in those 3 months. And it was high last year because we had the sheriff out there working to collect the money, which we don't this year. So this is a worst case, that much interest last year would equate, so $60,000 of interest last year would equate to $10,000 of interest this year. So a shortage of about $50,000. But again, that's if we had such great collections that we did last year, and we're certainly not expecting that. And the collection of back taxes, we're certainly not expecting that this year. The same with, this is the next year's budget, that in those months we collected $56,000 of interest. If we had a reduced rate, that would be $9,000 of interest. So that'd be a $47,000 decrease. That's more likely, but again, they'd have to pay their taxes by September 19th. So it was September of 30th. So we would know exactly what the pain is by September 30th. For the other revenues, the state revenues should remain intact. The Executive Order 7R said that they're going to continue funding the Board of Ed costs. the Board of Ed grants, like education cost sharing. The excess cost grant for special ed is based on the actual costs, so that if the actual costs go down, the revenue offset will also go down. And then our money we've been waiting for example, Town Aid Road, we've been waiting for since July. That finally passed, and I forgot to update this. They passed. Steve corrected me that they passed it last week. So the bonding has gone through, but we haven't received the cash yet. But we will be receiving that cash. Other revenues, trying to just talk to the departments that they'd like to take a look at their March numbers compared to what they had estimated. It's just, they hadn't gotten to that, but they all are slower than what we had expected. Luckily, that's only a few % of our total budget, and it's only a few months. So that won't have a great effect on this year.
Can I jump in real quickly? The big projects are still going to continue. Brookfield Village, we did give them a 2-month extension because they simply, with people working from home, people out, couldn't get everything done. But the big projects like the assisted living, all the other big commercial projects and their fees will continue. We anticipate some of the smaller projects, maybe an addition on someone's house, building a garage might go away or slow down, but we don't see the big projects stopping. Go ahead, Marsh.
All right. And then there's potential new revenues that FEMA, we attended the kickoff meeting today. There are a number of us on the call, exciting 2.5-hour call. We had, and that's a lot of paperwork. Greg Dembowski was the smartest one of the 200 people on the statewide call. So we very much appreciate him. He'll be taking charge of that FEMA grant as he did the last one. The Department of Public Health sent us something yesterday that said, fill in your costs for reimbursement. All right, what costs? I mean, we have plenty of costs, but do they want all the Board of Ed costs, all our costs? Do they want the fire department costs? Wow, that'd be a lot easier than FEMA, but I'm guessing they don't want all that. There's nothing on their website. I've got an email into them, but I'm sure a lot of other people do too. But that's a potential. We have to get the paperwork in by April 21st for reimbursement there. So if we don't get back to them, we'll throw it all at them and see what sticks. There are some federal pass-through grants that there's a CARE Act that mostly will deal with the Board of Ed. There's a Coronavirus Relief Act. Both of these are primarily Board of Ed, and they'll go through the state before they come to us. So we'll be dealing with the state and not the federal. There's a potential for a small cities block grant. That was another call today, which they never got to it. So I have to follow up with them on that. And then department heads like the library and social services are also looking through all their contacts to find other potential funding. So hopefully our spending it would be reimbursed at least 75% for whatever we spend.
Yeah, Marsh, can I jump in again? So the CARES Act, it limits a lot of the funding to communities of 500,000 or more. There isn't a single one in Connecticut that's more than 500,000 people in population. So they're looking at that. I know Dick Blumenthal and Murphy, Senator Murphy and Johanna Hayes are looking at that too, because that seems patently unfair that Brookfield and Hartford and Stanford are basically cut out of a lot of the grants for this. So I think they're going to change that. I'm sorry, go ahead.
Seems like they don't care that much.
No, I think you're right.
On capital we've been working on a report that, and I apologize that we're behind, and we thought we'd get it out today, but about 2 o'clock we just didn't have it ready. But we did manually. We have 2 issues. The reporting in Munis is not ideal. But we were able to get a PDF report and put it into Word and then put it into Excel to try and type less. But Kevin did a lot of work on that and manually prepared a report that we went over with each of the department heads. Here's your budget, here's your capital. That we're working to make some changes. For example, the purchase order for paving is we want to spend the LoSiP money first so we can get that back. So we're making some changes there. All of them are under budget, but we're working essentially how much to quantify what we would have as available cash in those accounts. And we will send that report out before your next meeting, next monthly meeting, to show you where we stand on each of the projects. This is the first time that the town's done project accounting. Last year, Kevin changed it all over so that it would track these reports don't go into Excel, they only go into PDF. So now we've got to go back and close a number of the report, the number of the projects so that it's a prettier report. But we're working on that, actively working on that. The second one is we talked about a policy. There's two things as far as capital project accounting policies that we want to try and get them into one policy. That we've got bonding rules that those we discussed with the bond council, and we've got capital non-recurring rules with the state statute. And so we want to try and develop a policy that would fit both and would still allow us to not be so strict as not being able to say, okay, this one is over $100 and this one is under 100. We'll wash those out. So that's waiting for me to do the draft, to give it to the attorney to make sure that it follows the bonding rules so we can do it, and give it to Steve to review. But that's also in process. Audit update, last year is completed. The one thing, so this month we completed that I did the federal reporting that I think we talked last year, last meeting, that they don't like to actually see it. They want you to upload it to their system, and that's done. UCOA reporting the Uniform Chart of Accounts to the state of Connecticut is on extension. That is not done yet. The 2020-21 that we do want to approve an audit firm by May 31st. So Brianna, if you could put that on the agenda for the May meeting, that there's a report that we have to give to the state of Connecticut. If we don't give it to them, if you say, hey, we hate these auditors, which we don't, but if you say we hate these auditors or we want to try to do something different, you're not boxed in. That if you said we'll need till July to get that RFP back, there's no penalty if you don't file that on time. We did go out to bid for auditors, and we're in year 4 of a 5-year proposal. But again, if we don't like them, there's nothing that keeps us bound to that. And I did talk to them today that we're trying to get in the September timeframe that where they come in to do the audit. Any questions?
No, I'm good. I'll just add that to the May meeting under yours, under the audit update, to just talk about it.
Probably under audit committee. We usually have an audit committee thing, which is next.
When can we get a rough estimate on the number savings from this year's COVID? Is there a timeline you and Steve are working to?
Yeah.
So Steve did send out an email that an email of our rough draft about an hour ago, but we're hoping that we could achieve $500,000 or greater, not of just COVID, but of everything.
And then you and Steve could sit down and present to us the best way to pay that forward or to utilize it where you talked about, so we can talk, intelligently to the process?
Yeah, we'll
Yes.
come to you with a whole plan of what we think we should and shouldn't do. And then we'll sit down with the Board of Selectmen and the Board of Finance, and we can do that before the 30-day period.
Yeah, we'd like to see that. And like I say, with your guys' input and tell us what you'd like to see, because you're then sitting in the managing chair, and we'd like to work with you to make a goal for all the town taxpayers, right?
Yeah.
So ours is just part of it, that we would need the Board of Ed numbers that would play into ours, so that we could, because for example, that 500,000, we had 200,000 earmarked for the Board of Ed a few months ago, that 500, if they still needed 200, would go down to 300,000. That I can't imagine they would still need it, but
Yeah. I think Rosa, I sent a note to Rosa and John. Glenn and I discussed this briefly last week, that we want to stress test these budgets to see exactly where we have room, what we're not spending money on, what we are spending money on, what are our increased expenses, where do we think we can save, so that we can give the Board of Finance the most up-to-date information as possible, so you can create a budget that really makes sense.
Right, and we'd want your input, obviously, on the do's and don'ts. And we looked at Marcia's guidance tonight by saying if we do reduce the mill rate by, say, a percentage this year, the increase next year by nature goes up, correct?
Going to start at least 1% up. Yeah.
Right, so that we start behind the 8 ball, but at least we alleviate the taxpayers during this crisis, or coming out of the crisis.
Correct.
All right, so we're on the same page. One other question I had, and I talked to Marcia briefly about it, and we did, like road paving. Do we have any money left in the road paving that we can push off the next year, since the roads are so good, mild winter, no potholes?
We could. We would have to reallocate some of that into the capital non-recurring. I'd like to talk to Ralph Tedesco about that, because he has a
Absolutely.
very complicated and sophisticated plan for road paving.
Yeah, I
And-
loved it. The percentages, the whole mileage and all
right.
that, formulas.
Yeah, that's not a bad idea, but I'd like to talk to him first to understand what the true implications are, because then again, we'd probably, if we took money from there, we're going to want to add it next year.
Oh, I agree, Steve. We're not taking it away. We had a mild winter. Nobody's driving on the roads right now. I haven't hit a pothole in months. So, I mean, your crews do a great job. And what I'm saying is that we can maybe push some of that money back too. If Ralph
Okay.
says no, it's no.
Okay, we'll check and see. He doesn't spend all the money in the fall, so there is some money left. We'll determine exactly how much is left and then come back to you guys.
Perfect. Thank you.
And Marcia, just to clarify, that 500,000 potential savings you're talking about is just from the town side.
No, 200 of that was the school 208.
No.
The whole 500,000 is the town budget, and that's the 100%. If we were still going to give something to the Board of Ed, that would be reduced. Yes.
So the 500,000 is the potential savings you're looking at on the town side.
Right.
That you are somewhat confident in now.
Yes.
Yes.
Great.
All right. I think we're on to Rosa now.
You have to unmute her.
Thank you. Okay, I think I can share my screen with you guys. Oh, maybe not. Okay. If that ability is available, that'd be helpful. But if not, I can just read through. What I'd like to do is.
Be able to share now.
Okay, let me see. Okay, so can you guys see this potential financial exposures and savings that I have up?
I can't.
Okay. Oh, wait, maybe not.
Can't see it.
Okay, how about that?
Yep.
Oh, there
Okay.
we go.
Okay, so the three things I kind of want to talk about tonight, because we don't, and I'll apologize, we don't have an updated financial report yet. The Finance Committee of the Board of Ed will not meet until next Monday. It's just how this particular month falls with April break and everything. But I do have three really important updates that I can share with you guys. One is the potential exposures and savings due to COVID, and then two other updates regarding next year's budget. So, sorry, I'm just gonna move something out of my way. Okay, so for the potential financial exposures and savings, I just want everybody to keep in mind that we are only about 3 weeks into this closure, and that seems like a long time for us personally, but from running a district standpoint and trying to still educate kids and get everything up and running, it has really been quite a Herculean feat to keep this district running remotely. So adding up the pluses and minuses right now was not up until this point, super high on our priority list, and making sort of models and projections and playing around with the numbers and stuff was something that we will do, and we will now use this 30-day extension to really dig in. So again, we don't really know if we're going to go back to school or not. I have a feeling that we probably won't, but until we really get that kind of confirmation, that's really going to be the trigger for us to really dig deep into the analysis. And like you guys are on the town side, we'll be using this time to really dig in and figure that out. But it's not, so the most recent Executive Order 7R dictates that all of our employees will still have to be paid through this. And some of the other services such as transportation, special ed services, that transportation related to that, those we're just entering into the negotiations with those service providers. So again, we won't really know until we really get an idea of when or if we're going back to school. But I do have some general areas that we have looked at. So in terms of Medicaid reimbursement, we're unsure how much of the services that we're providing in distance learning are going to qualify for reimbursement. So that might affect that there. In terms of the magnet school transportation, adult education grants. So the grants are going to be fully of exposure. Building use revenue, as of right now, we're about $6,000. So that will only grow the longer we are out of school. In terms of an exposure. We haven't heard anything from the state in terms of the team mentor reimbursement. Pre-K tuition is very difficult. We've actually had some parents ask for refunds because they just don't want to participate in the distance learning that we've had. And so they're requesting their tuition be repaid to them. So again, it's all going to be up in the air until we figure that out. Unemployment for substitutes, we haven't had that subservice long enough for the unemployment charges to be paid by them. So again, if and when substitutes collect unemployment, it will be charged to us.
Wait, whoa.
Yep.
How did we even sign up for this? Because a lot of these substitutes are day-to-day substitutes, and that was part of the day-to-day hiring that we did. We've never paid unemployment to substitutes. Have we ever in the Brookfield, or am I missing something?
I think maybe for long-term subs, we might. I'm not 100% sure on this, but I think it would have to do something more with the long-term substitutes.
But even if we brought in a long-term substitute, Rosa, we say you're here for 3 months. It's a 3-month gig. We pay them unemployment after 3 months.
I'm not entirely clear on this. These are the questions that we will certainly dig in on. Yeah.
That's a liability. If this comes with the subservice, was that put into the contract? Was that discussed with people? Was this vetted and voted on and approved? Because this subservice is getting trickier and trickier by the day. What do we have? What liabilities do we have? The only thing we got was from you guys was a net zero savings. Like, we're going to pay more for the short-term subs, but the long-term subs we're going to pay less. But there really wasn't a defining moment.
Yeah, no, you're right. It's something that I would definitely have to look closer at. Yeah.
Rosa, can I help out here?
Sure.
This is Marcia. Just so you understand, the way that works with substitutes is that they go back, I think it's 4 quarters to see where you worked before. So even though that they're not our employees, they used to be our employees. That's where we would get hit if we get hit. And
is that for long-term or day-to-day, Marcia? Like,
I would think day-to-day people wouldn't get unemployment, but I would also think that It's a crazy world today, and I'm not sure how much they're checking. And we've had people that have quit or retired that are still getting unemployment. It's not a fair system to the employer.
And it is changing substantially over the last 2 weeks. And the details are not completely accurate yet. We don't have the details.
I guess more of my questions along the line of, we hired a subservice. So now this subservice can bring day-to-day substitutes to every school. So they can employ these people pretty much year round. They decide they collect unemployment, it gets put on us, and that wouldn't have happened in the past. I guess that's more my question.
So a year from now, the subservice would get all that. The only reason it would affect us is they used to be our employees.
Right.
So it's not a matter of the subservice. It's a matter, the subservice has nothing to do with it. It's just because that we were in their prior quarters.
Okay. All right. Very good. All right. Thank you.
Rosa, I have a quick question.
Yep.
I think it's a couple lines up on your Word document. The Medicaid reimbursement.
Yep.
Is there any way that FEMA would cover that gap? Would they be able to cover the difference with the distance learning?
I'm not entirely sure, but I'll write that down and I will ask about that. So
Just a question.
That's more the
Yeah.
insurance.
Brianna, we have, we're looking at this, and the FEMA, we had a meeting for 2 hours today with FEMA. Oh my God, it's just like it used to be. Chinese water torture. They have not fully decided what they're covering and what they're not going to cover. So what we are planning to do is to throw every single possible expense that we have and let them turn us down. And we'll do the same thing with anything from the Board of Ed too.
Awesome. Thank you.
okay, so the excess cost grant should be fully funded. So that's a good thing in terms of this year, but because, and Marcia had mentioned this before, if our expenses are lower, this could result in a reduction for next year's grant. So that's potentially something to keep in mind. On the savings side, we don't really, again, know anything about the substitutes as of yet, but, as soon as we get this call that, schools are gonna be closed, let's say for the end of the year, that's gonna be actually make this process a lot easier. Coaches, spring sports.
Wait, we'll go back to the substitute line though. But
Yeah,
on your substitute line, you guys projected out an extra 40,000 overspend, which is included in your total on that money needed
Yeah.
from us. That's about a 1 month burn. That's about what you're spending per month.
sorry, you're
Since we
cutting
lost a
out.
month. So, well, that's about a 1 month burn. You guys added in 40,000 into the extra costs. That's about a 1 month burn. Since we weren't in for this month, that should wash out the backside, and you should be back to at least status zero, even if we go back to school. There shouldn't be an overspend anymore because you added in a month's worth of extra substitutes.
Unless they have to pay
Top
for
of
the
your
long-term
budget.
subs.
Right, they had an
Yeah.
X amount of budget. Ken put a plug into that to add in to saying we're gonna go $40,000 over. He presented that last month in February. That's about a month burn on the expenditures for substitutes. We've lost a month of school right now, so that plug should potentially come out and we should at least be at net zero. So it's a gain of 40,000 in the long run. Right off the bat, it should be simple math.
But that depends on the
Well,
treatment of the long-term.
Yeah,
subs.
we can figure out how many of those are long-term subs. So the trick with that executive order was that if they were going to be employed by you and expecting a paycheck during this closure, then they have to continue to get a paycheck. So if that means the long-term subs, then we have to continue to pay the service for those subs. So
All right,
we,
makes sense. No,
it'll-
makes sense. Makes absolute.
it'll just depend on,
No, that makes
I
sense.
guess.
Ricky and you both made sense. That makes sense. Yep.
But if we have to pay the long-term subs because of the governor's executive order, then
Correct.
the flip side is we wouldn't have to pay them on the unemployment side.
right.
But would we have to pay the subservice? I mean, that's a subcontractor, not a salary.
Yeah, but we actually have to pay all of our subcontractors that provide services to us. So same thing like with buses and all the special ed related services, we have to continue to pay them. so that they continue to pay their employees and provide health insurance.
However, we don't have to pay the profit margins. We have to pay their
Right,
salaries.
right,
We have to pay their reasonable healthcare costs, and we
Right.
have to pay reasonable overheads.
right, right. So I mean, technically, we should see savings in those areas. It'll just, it'll depend on overages, but yeah. Coaches that,
Is it my
Oh.
connection?
I think it's Rose's connection. I'm okay. I can see everybody else.
Okay. I lost Rosa.
Yeah,
I
we
think
lost
Rose-
her.
Okay, I'll text her.
Be halfway done with the page by the time she gets back.
I'm not taking over, Ricky. That's up to you.
It looks like she's off altogether now.
Yeah.
She's trying to get back on.
Oh, okay, okay.
Dan, you need to add some music into the background for
Exactly.
these quiet times.
If I try adding too much, this thing might break.
That's true.
I was just thinking that. I'm like, this is awkwardly silent.
We should have Brianna or John should.
Well,
sing.
it looks like John wants us to unmute him so he can play.
Here we go.
I can,
Hold on.
I mean, I can sing.
Let's see if I can get this working. Well, hold on.
Can you do tiny bubbles?
I probably could. I got to put this away. This is get me in trouble.
On ho.
She's trying to get back on. She lost her internet connection.
All right, let's make a motion to move on to the report of the committees. Do I get a second?
Second.
All those in favor?
Hi.
I guess.
I mean, yes, let's go on. There's audit committee. There is, we'll wait for Dan on that. Marcia gave an update of where we stood, right?
Yep.
We're good to roll on that, right?
Yes.
Any old business to go through while we're waiting on Rosa? Hearing none. We'll
I
move
didn't have any, no.
New business. We need to set a calendar. Steve sent out a memo today with his motion from the Board of Selectmen. We have to have the budget passed by June 4th, correct, Steve? Unmute, Steve.
Yes, yes.
So
Yeah.
we could have the town hearing then the first week of May. Correct?
Yes,
All right. So then as a group, we need to set up a meeting. Can we meet next Wednesday?
well, no, you would have a public hearing, not a town meeting.
Yeah, but we need to have our own meeting. The public
Yes,
hearing's the first week of May.
Yeah, you want to set the budget. You need to discuss it.
Right. So can we meet next Wednesday as a group?
The
Thanks.
15th?
Yep.
I'm fine with the 15th.
I'm okay with that.
I think we just need to check with Dan too.
I'm okay with it, but the further out we put our meeting, the more chance we're going to have information, accurate information from Marcia and Steve, and also from the Board of Education.
I agree. I think this is a dual meeting. I was going to say we meet the next Wednesday as well.
Yeah, or the 15th and the 29th.
You mean the 22nd to the 29th, Mark?
I think we need to discuss next week a game plan, our thoughts, what we want, information we want to have, make sure anything that we've gotten, we have time to ask questions so the people can get back to us. We may ask Steve, Marcia, Rosa 10 questions, and we're going to have them give them time like a week to get back to us, right? So,
Right.
we
So you're
meet
saying
next
meet the 15th, which is next Wednesday.
and then we meet the following Wednesday, if needed. We put in an agenda, and then if we got to meet one more time, we have to meet one more time. This is the first time I think that I've known Brookfield that a Board of Finance is setting a budget.
Right. So I'm fine. I think the 29th is going to be the more important of the meetings because that's going to be the best time to get the most information we can.
Absolutely
Steve
agree.
was gracious enough to, Steve and the selectmen granted us this extension. Let's use it. So I'm fine meeting all 3 Wednesdays.
That's what I'm saying. We propose to meet all 3 Wednesdays. If we don't need the middle Wednesday, we
Yep.
don't meet. But let's propose them now that we meet every Wednesday from now. We meet the 15th, the whatever, the 20.
2nd and the 29th.
Yes. Ricky, you good?
Yeah, I think I can make that. I mean,
Eileen?
Yeah,
I'm
it's
not going anywhere.
Steve?
Yeah,
Fine
I'm
with
good.
me.
I'll make it good.
John, you too?
Sure, absolutely.
Okay.
I think we got to schedule the meetings now because we don't know what we're going to face.
and
Yes,
it's
that's
better
true.
to schedule and cancel if we don't need it than to not
Yeah.
have it scheduled.
And next meeting, I'd like us to have like questions and everything we want to have answered from each side. So they do have time to get us the answers, correct?
Yeah, we could take the first week to essentially come up with questions.
Right.
And then the next week, hopefully have answers. And then, like Mark said, the 29th would be the real important meeting.
Correct. Deliberations, right?
Yeah. So it's just going to be a special agenda for all 3 weeks of literally setting the budget.
Yeah, I think that's all we need to write, Steve. It's setting budget discussion.
Yeah, the only thing you want to be sure if you're going to add anything, you have to do it at least a day before.
Got it.
Because you can only talk about what's on the agenda during the meeting.
Right. But our agenda will be budget discussion.
Yeah.
Right.
Right.
Eileen, can you text, excuse me, Rosa, and see if maybe she can at least call in, even if we can't see the list?
I've already sent the call-in number of the meeting ID.
Thank
Does
you.
she want to email it to me and I can put it on my screen while she talks?
Yeah, let me just check in and see where she's at with trying to get back in.
Dan?
Yep, we don't have anybody new joining now, but we did have 2 other people. I didn't know if either of them were her.
I think, yeah. Also, Joy Greenstein Stein wants to speak during public comment. She doesn't know how to sign up for that.
We'll just
raise your hand
So
or
does,
press star.
Mr. Muller, Brian Muller
And Brian Muller wants to as well.
as well. So
I just got an email from Rosa. I don't know if you all see
Yeah,
the same one. Okay, good. So hopefully somebody could put up that document.
I got nothing from her.
It went directly to the BOF at Brookfield CT, so maybe it takes a minute to
Oh, that
push.
doesn't come up on my Surface Pro.
Okay.
Okay.
I got it.
All
Hello.
right, we just had the phone call join
Hi,
in. Is that
you're
you,
back.
Rosa?
Sorry, it's like I've never had an internet connection issue, and then the one like 5 minutes that I need it.
Murphy's Law.
I know.
Mhm.
All right, so I did email you all because I'm using my phone as a hotspot, but I don't think it's enough to actually join on the actual Zoom. But I did email you the documents that I was going through, so if you wanted to go through it.
Yeah, Marcia
you
put
can
it
have
up, which is good.
Oh, perfect.
So-
Perfect. So somewhere we were down about halfway down through the potential savings.
the coaches, Rosa.
Yep, the coaches. So, right. So all the sports are still a possibility if we go back to school. It's not like we've missed a sport because of the closure yet. So we're just waiting on a legal opinion on as to whether coaches and after school activities are included in that executive order. So if we get notification that the schools will be closed, then again, we'll be able to put a final number on that. In terms of extended duty, overtime, professional development, we have some figures on that in terms of where we stand under budget. And those are, I think those are significant numbers for us. I don't know if you have any questions on either of those. In terms of general and special education transportation, so that's going to be the big chunk that we've only just started entering into the negotiations for that. It's not going to be, we're not going to do a full audit on how much, they're spending and we're finding out, but it's got to be sort of a good faith negotiation with them in terms of, what do you really need to pay your employees? We shouldn't, we should have, unused fuel and stuff like that we shouldn't have to, pay for. We should be able to recoup some of that. So, I think there's going to be savings there. It's really just a matter of how much.
But
Same
Rosa,
thing with
here's a question. For those items like the ones that were prepaid and now we're expecting a reimbursement on, could we even reasonably expect that to get paid out before July 1st?
Good question. I don't know. Yeah, I mean, maybe
either way, if we have a number, we would expect to get
Right.
that paid within the year. So I would assume, right? So we could still
yeah, I would
use that
assume
towards.
so too.
Okay.
Yeah. I would imagine, especially if it's, it's money we've already paid them and they haven't used. So I would hope
pick
so.
it up as a receivable, as long as we.
I'm not interested in taking money away from the schools like that. If they have these savings, that's to offset some of the costs for next year. So whether they receive the money this year or next year.
No. Nothing. I was thinking more about booking it as a revenue, but right, like Marcia said, it would come through as like a receivable. So even if we got it in, let's say October of next year, we can still anticipate that we could use that towards the budget to help fund it. That was my point. Sorry.
Yeah, no.
Right.
I mean, they're more likely to get offsets on, if it's a transportation, it would offset some of the transportation for next year. I don't think they're going to hand us a check.
Right. We don't know. Yeah. So for the rest of the things that I've listed here, most of these are accounts that are frozen now. So if the longer school remains closed, the bigger those savings will be because we're just not spending what is left in those accounts. The only exception I think to that is diesel fuel. So a little bit farther down that list, you'll see that we're saving by buying fewer gallons. We would now normally have a liquidation charge for any of those unused gallons. So hopefully that will be part of, what we can negotiate.
Isn't that part of the town contract too, Steve? I mean.
Yes, it is. We're working with Mitchell Oil right now because prices are so low. We're trying to lock in and work out. We're going to have additional diesel fuel that we're not going to use. And we're working out with them right now to just have it roll over rather than losing it or paying a liquidation fee. We don't have
Right.
to.
The information I got from Jerry today was that there will be no penalty. But part of that was we extended the contract to try and capitalize on these rates. But as far as I know, as of now, there should be no penalty.
So
Okay.
why are we negotiating on two fronts and not negotiating on one front and having one lead person?
Yeah, we're doing the town is taking the lead on this.
Okay. All right.
Let me see.
Now, electricity, that's something that should be fairly straightforward, Rosa, to predict. I mean, you know your monthly rates. You get a 12-month bill rate. You know in July and August, you burn about $20,000 a month in electricity. Then you run a full-loaded school. You burn anywhere from $42,000 to $50,000 a month. You had school out now for 31 days. It should be a month of electric savings right there. You should be sitting on 30,000 or more already in that line item.
Okay. I mean, these next 30 days are just for exactly that. You guys, you wanted to extend it out, and that's, to get some more final numbers. And that is exactly what we're going to be doing, using that 30 days to do. And hopefully we will get some good news in terms of making this a little easier. If school just closes the end of the year, for the rest of the year, that will make these calculations a lot easier. But, just keeping in mind that, running this district remotely has been incredibly difficult. And, our priority is educating the kids, and that's where we've focused most of our energy. And so, these numbers are definitely going to be coming your way. We're going to dig in as soon as we have some more information.
And I appreciate that, and I understand it, but yet this is a crunch time for all of us. Ken and his staff are salaried employees. And in my world, I got to be really honest with you. If I got to get a job done in a timely manner, that means 80 hours a week. That means working weekends. That means doing things outside of your norm. And these
they definitely are. I can absolutely guarantee you that.
These numbers are crucial.
Honestly, teachers and all the administrative staff have been working weekends, nights. I mean, they have really been working around the clock. It's amazing what they've done. And, this is stuff that you're going to get the information from it. It's just, we don't have it right now in the first 3 weeks of this closure.
So if I may, Rosa, I do want to commend you, the Board of Ed, the teachers, the administration for doing a great job to continue to educate the students. And I understand that is your number one priority, as it should be. You guys are doing great with that. But our job is to look at the finances. I just, of everyone in the town. But one thing is, you just talked about this 30-day extension, and when we had lost you, we had to talk about our calendar while you were gone in order to move forward with our meeting. So we have meetings now scheduled for the next 3 Wednesdays, but Wednesday the 29th is our last meeting to have our deliberations to set the budget. So I just don't want an expectation that there's 30 days from today, because we've already some of Steve's things. So we need them before that meeting on the 29th.
We need it a week before. We can't get it on the 29th and then be expected to make decisions. That ain't gonna happen.
I said before.
No, we totally understand the question, and we totally understand the position that you guys are in. And I can promise you that, we're having our finance committee meeting next Monday, and that will be what we talk about. So, between that and our next board meeting is not until May, but we will spend, the rest of this month, and you'll get your answers before, the time that you need them. But, we can only do as good as we possibly can. And I can only just continue to assure you that we're trying to stay on top of this. The situation keeps changing on a near daily basis. And that's just something that we're just trying to deal with as it comes.
Yeah, and I appreciate that, Rosa. None of us want to go in this with we want to go in as few assumptions as possible. So you understand what we're looking for. You've got a list started here, which is a good start of a list. So it'll be, don't wait. If you've got numbers on 1 or 2 lines, I would ask that you send those to us piecemeal instead of waiting to complete the document.
Yep. No, definitely.
And Rosa, would you be able to, I think you said it's Monday, your finance committee meeting. Do you think you'd be able to get us anything? We have a meeting Wednesday, the 15th, right after that. Because I know you said you couldn't get us your financial report.
It is Wednesday. It's Monday the 20th, not Monday the 13th.
Okay, so we could have it the 22nd.
Yes.
Okay.
I'll make that a priority. I understand the position that you guys are in, but, and to be honest, I'm really hoping that we get some information, from the governor that gives us something a little more definitive. So, at this point, that's what we're working towards. And, should school be a possibility at some point for the rest of the year? No, everything has to be ready to go, like the moment that they say we can go back to school. So, until then, we're sort of in this like really difficult limbo state of, do we just count on all those savings the rest of the year, or is it actually going to be more money because we've had to deal with this distance learning and then jump back into real school again? So, So just to give you guys sort of an understanding of that.
Well, Rosa, this is Ricky. We definitely don't want to make, we wouldn't dare make assumptions that schools would be closed till the end of the year unless that was a definitive thing. So it still wouldn't hurt to have a projection in a what if scenario, but we would never say, okay, let's budget to that because we have a gut feeling. Like we aren't reckless in that way, but it is nice to have that in our back pocket so we could plan for, well, if this does happen, then we're going to end up with a little bit extra and we can still find a way to implement that within the budget for without having, it won't affect the mill rate at that point, but maybe we could offset something else that we could potentially, there might be something that we could potentially use that for to either help the schools or help the town or whatever. I'm not, but it would be good to have a both. Here's current situation. Here's if we were to go to the end of the year.
Yeah. I will continue to ask for that, and I will certainly keep trying.
And if you're getting any kind of pushback as to the numbers and the calculations, I mean, we're all kind of numbers people on this end too. We'd be glad to help with any of the math involved if it turns out to be too complicated. I mean, this is what we do for our jobs, so we are here to help. This is a community thing, and this isn't in no way me saying we want to try to have control of anything. It is strictly offering a helping hand. So it's just a gesture of good faith here.
Thank you.
Yep.
Before we move on, was that the end of this section, Rosa?
That was the end of that section, yeah, unless you guys had any questions.
Steve and Marcia, what's the agreement that we entered, and I can't remember it all the way, on the non-lapsing education side? Number one, it can't be more than 1% of their current budget, correct?
It can't be more than 1% of their current budget. However, what we're talking about doing, or what I was suggesting we do with the capital non-recurring, has the same effect as a non-lapsing fund.
Yeah.
Right, but what was our agreement on how we decide if they get this savings? How do we roll it forward? I mean, if they save $200,000, does it automatically go into their non-lapsing fund, or is that a vote that the selectmen made on making that choice?
No, those funds would have to, if at the end of the year they have money left over, that has to be returned to the town.
Okay.
The Board of Finance can then make a decision to say, okay, we're going to put it in a non-lapsing, but it can't exceed 1% of their budget.
Can I add one thing to that, just because, and so recent legislation, I believe it was last year, actually increased that to 2%. Now, local boards of finance don't have to do that, but in terms of state legislation, I believe you can do 2%.
Okay.
And it's still waiting for for me to come up with a draft policy. I have a draft policy. I just have to get back to it.
Right.
Yeah.
Rosa, to be bluntly honest, if you end up with 2% extra on a year without a crisis, you won't see an increase in your budget going forward for a long time. I can tell you that now.
No.
If you got $800 sitting at the end of the year, I gotta tell you. So
not yeah.
I mean,
not this year.
We misbudgeted if we're 800,000 in extra money without a crisis.
Well,
there's a shutdown, so there's some.
This year is a different story. I'm talking a regular year. If we end up with 2%.
Oh no, on a regular.
We're talking about this year.
Yeah, not on a regular year.
All right. Yeah.
If because of the school shutdown, they could realize a huge, albeit one time, hopefully ever in history, savings. So
yes, that I accept.
But I don't, I'm not saying like I want to take it away from them.
No. That's I agree totally. I apologize, but I'm talking like in future years. If we miss 1,000,
I'm just trying to stay on this year topic. Sorry.
All right, cool. All right, next.
All right, so kind of working into that, then this is a good sort of segue to talk about next year's budget, and in particular the operating budget. So a couple of when we So with the $817,000 that our budget was reduced, since we had created the budget, there were a few other areas that had actually increased. So we took a look at sewer, FICA, the pension, the magnet school tuition, our monitor tuition, and the extended school year, and adjusted those to what they should actually be, since we have some of those more accurate figures since the budget was first created. So it actually ended up being a total of 871 that we needed to reduce the Board of Ed budget by. And if you're looking at the Excel sheet that I gave you, we sort of broke it out into 3 tiers. The first being sort of kind of obvious, but I wanted to point out to you guys that, we really heard and took your feedback, and we took a much bigger risk on our salary line. So that essentially is going to be the biggest driver in terms of where we get to that $871,000. So is eliminating all of our contingencies and taking a huge risk on our salary line.
So wait a minute. What is
Yeah.
your total salary risk on your salary line right now?
200.
Okay, so the 120 is on top of the 80.
Yes.
All right, thank
So the
you.
80 was already budgeted in.
Yep.
Yeah, these are the increases to that. Yep.
Thanks for the clarification.
Yeah, so all of these are on top of what we had originally put forward. So when we get down into more tier 2, tier 3, those are the things that we're just kind of going through and not only scrubbing the budget, but figuring out where we can, maybe slow down the progress, take a little bit from areas where we might not necessarily, or we could be able to get by without it. We found out that we can pay the lunch monitors out of the lunch fund, so that's going to save us a lot.
Is that also
there's
to this year and take this year's?
I asked about that, and I haven't found out the answer to that quite yet. So I hope so.
I guess this is, Rosa, and I'll speak honestly here, is these are the type of things I think that we don't understand from a Board of Finance side. There's money in these accounts on these sidelines, and yet we don't seem to understand the rules of use. And here we have 300 and something thousand in this lunch fund that we're now able to pay the lunch monitors out of, when that $30,000 could have went towards textbooks out of your operating budget. It could have went towards whiteboards, but yet we didn't understand the funds on these sidelines and the rules of use. And somewhere in your enterprise, there should be somebody that understands these accounts and knows the rules to use them by.
No, that's fair. Yep.
And
this is something that. Go ahead, Mark.
I don't know of any changes to the rules that are allowing us to pay it next year, but not this year. So I would imagine we can pay it this year as well.
Right, but this is, like I say, my frustration a little bit, Rosa, is these are the items when we say, hey, scrub your budget, understand your budget, understand the rules. We can't dive into line item control and we don't want it, but this is where we get frustrated, is here is $30,000 sitting there that was in a fund that's holding 300. How much does that fund hold, Marcia? What's in that fund?
I think it's down to 300,000. It was up, I think, to as much as 400,000 before.
And yet we're using operating funds to fund these type of things. That's a frustration on our part when we're looking to do budgeting processes. We're looking at cutting things out, and there's 30,000 that we don't see. I mean, so can you understand some of where we come from on this?
Yeah, no, absolutely. Yeah, I can.
Okay. And whose responsibility would be understand these accounts?
I mean, certainly the people in central office. Yeah.
So have they been spoken to? Is this like one account? Do we have other accounts? I mean, this is where, again, this is what I call accountability. And accountability, this was something overlooked. And this is where we're struggling with, is these overlooks. And, oh, my bad, there's 30,000. Well, oh, my bad, 30,000. Where's the accountability? Where is the, hey, why did we miss this? What else are we missing, I guess, is
No, I understand. That's a fair question, and in the finance committee, we're discussing just that. But you know, I think it's probably best if we want to take this conversation offline rather than to
Perfect.
you
Understood.
know, use this forum to kind of just inform the public on, you know, what we're doing in terms of cooperation.
Understood, but it is the public's money. I mean, that's the bottom line. It's the taxpayers'
right.
dollars. So, I mean, it's hard to look at someone and say, gee, we messed up on 30,000. I mean, we got to tighten this up. And that's part of where we're coming from, is the tightening up of the process. I think that's where Steve and I's email to you at the beginning of the year on the budget was more about, is not that you're not, you know, you have needs, and we all understand that. It's like, where are these pockets of money that we can be smart around? Steve, am I speaking out of school? Because if I am, tell me I am.
No, I agree with you, Glenn. We just want to make sure that we have, and we've been saying this since December, the right numbers in the right boxes, right? And I
this
think
would
we're
be a
getting.
box that we're talking about. I mean, this is an example of that box.
Yep. I
All right.
agree.
Thanks, Rosa. I appreciate your honesty, Rosa. Thank you.
Mm-hmm. So, you know, the rest of what's in this tier 2 is, again, just slowing the progress, delaying some things. We did shave a bunch of professional development. So the Amanda Aarons, the SSPD, that's the Social Studies PD, the IPDP, that's also professional development. Those are 3 accounts that we just shaved a bit on, but I think we're going to be able to get some of that back by shifting something. So these are not necessarily, these are just sort of like estimates as to what was presented to us. You know, I don't want you guys to, or anybody really, to think that we're not prioritizing professional development. That is still a goal of the board. So we're still going to try to figure out a way to get more of these and shave elsewhere. But the other, so that mostly encompasses, you know, tier 3 is just tightening up, shaving in some areas. When you get down into tier 3, those are really just your more, you know, a lot of these accounts that were frozen this year, we're just going to do less with, you know, and it's just small shavings here and there to kind of get to the rest of that, those reductions. So I don't know if you guys want to go through that and if you have any questions on them.
I don't have any. Brianna, Mark, Eileen, Ricky,
Fine.
No, I'm good. I'm good.
Marcia.
No questions.
All right, we're good. Thanks.
I'm just
So
doing
then-
some math. Give me a second. Carry on. Don't wait for me.
So the last thing I wanted to talk to you guys about tonight was the capital plan for next year. And I do want to start off by first, you know, the timing of all of this was just really bad this year, not just due to COVID, but just the information that was available at particular times. And I think want to articulate like that, or I want to apologize rather for not articulating the importance of the boys locker room project. You know, when throughout the budget cycle, we had always had that highlighted in red because we knew that Tecton's estimates had come in at twice what we had originally anticipated. And that number that we had originally anticipated came from some architectural firm years ago, before I think any of us were on the board, and perhaps before even John was here. And that was the estimate at the time. And that was, somebody had remembered a number like that and put it into the budget. But, you know, things have changed and conditions have worsened. And the reality is that the boys locker room project is a much, much bigger undertaking. And the 600,000 probably wouldn't have even covered the minimal amount of renovation that we needed. Tecton did give us some other options. And so what I'd like to convey to you tonight is that we would still like to present to you the full scope of the project in terms of like the complete renovation that the facilities subcommittee suggested and the board has unanimously supported. So we would still like to bring that to you, and it doesn't have to, I never planned on doing that tonight, but I would like to do that, at a date in the future. What's important to note now is that the $300,000 that the Board of Finance put forward, that constitutes a substantive change in what was originally reported to the New England Association of Schools and Colleges, or NEASC, and that's our accreditation organization. So, and this is my biggest apology, is not articulating the necessity of this particular project and how that hinged on that accreditation. So when we told Principal Mark Belanda, he said that he was going to have to report this change, this new information to NEASC, and that could potentially jeopardize Brookfield's accreditation in the future if we don't show continual progress on this project. And one of the things that I went through the NEASC report, and it's, over 100 pages, but I zoomed in on the part that really talked about the boys' locker room to kind of give you all an idea of exactly how much they prioritize this. So I'm quoting from that report, but the visiting committee said that, quote, "The boys' locker room is in serious need of renovation. Some lockers are aging and in disrepair, bathroom stalls are falling apart, and the doors do not lock. The shower areas are currently being used as storage for both physical education and athletic departments. The district has appointed a planning committee to develop a renovation plan to create a new boys' locker room. While these items make their way onto the 10-year capital plan, they have frequently been postponed due to a lack of funding commitment. When the community consistently funds programs to ensure the maintenance and repair of the building and school plant and to keep the school clean on a daily basis, students will have an environment conducive to learning, enabling them to better achieve the school's 21st century learning expectations." So I share that because they had seen our 10-year capital plan, and they saw that we had put in a significant amount for the boys' locker room renovation. Now, because that has changed so much, that's the part that we have to report to them. So there is
Rosa,
one particular,
yeah.
Can you report that with the caveat that this isn't a dead in the water situation? We're still waiting on the full proposal.
Yeah, I can. Yeah, as much information as we can give to them, I think we absolutely will. And if there is, if there is any way that we can understand sort of the process on how to get this done, that would help us.
Okay, can I jump in here? Steve's here.
Yes.
This is, to me, really shocking, and I'll tell you why. We asked for every department and the Board of Ed to give us their capital needs in December. At the day before the final Board of Finance meeting, while we were having a joint meeting with the Board of Ed and the Board of Finance and the Board of Selectmen, it was casually mentioned to us that this project was now, 1.3, 1.4. No one had ever mentioned that to us at all at any time. No one had ever mentioned to us that the NEASC had serious concerns with this project. The lack of communication is really startling, and it really bothers me, Rosa. I got to tell you.
No, I will definitely say that I didn't even understand the full scope of how important that project was to the accreditation.
And
that's information.
The Board of Selectmen fully funded what you asked for. Now, the Board of Finance did change it after discussion, but I'm sure they would have looked at this differently.
No, absolutely. I 100% agree with that. I don't think that, you guys are out to really just, cut wherever you want. But I do think that if we had prepared this information and known this information ahead of time, that something might have been different. However, just saying now, and this is where I was saying, the timing of all of this was really poor. In articulating the importance of this project, that's on me. But the timing of it was still something. Some of that is still, out of anybody's control. And I know that you guys, when that project came in, and we knew, and we had told you that it was, 1.2, 1.3, and that was just astronomically higher than what we had originally planned for. We went back to Tecton and said, okay, you've got to really give us the plans, got to give us some different options, because, at that time we were like, can we do something to the locker room that's not 1.2, but maybe somewhere in the ballpark of 600. And so that's what we did. And we didn't get that information back until after you had voted on the capital. So that's, the unfortunate timing of all this. But, we would still like to sort of, understand a path forward.
I
Hey,
got
Rosa.
if I can.
No, go ahead, Mark.
Thank you. So this is the first I'm hearing about this issue with accreditation, and I'm shocked and appalled. You're the chairman of the Board of Education, and you're telling me there's an item that will, in your words, this will put Brookfield High School's continued accreditation in jeopardy. This will put it in jeopardy, and you didn't know about this? Nobody knew about this?
No.
It's
If I didn't know about it, I didn't know about it as a board member, no.
So when
I knew this project was important because my facilities committee told me it was.
important,
And we put it as our,
accreditation should be the most important.
I don't think I don't think the facilities committee understood that it was, that we couldn't get anything really for 600.
No. Forget the number. There was nothing mentioned about losing accreditation for the high school because of a locker room project. Did anybody else hear that?
No, and to be honest, I don't want to say that we're going to lose accreditation.
You do say that. This will put.
It will put it in jeopardy if we don't show that we are making progress at fixing this issue.
Here's my issue, Rosa.
So, hold on, Glenn, I'm not done yet. If I can finish. Is that okay?
Yes, sir.
Yeah.
Thank you. So here's the following standards have been compromised. I'm not going to read the whole thing because you already did it, but I'm going to read a couple of sections. The boys' locker room is in serious need of renovation. Some lockers are aging in disrepair, bathroom installs are falling apart, and doors do not lock. Shower areas are currently being used as storage. Well, it doesn't take any money to pull the stuff out of the shower areas and not use them as storage. Find another storage area for them. So that's not a money issue. Keeping the school clean on a daily basis. If you need to get different janitors, and that's what we have to do, better custodial staff, whatever. That has nothing to do with the locker room. That's cleaning the school on a daily basis.
We're down an incredible amount of custodians, and that's something that we have talked about. I mean,
to hire them. You do. So.
We do. We can't find any. That's a different problem, but.
Develop and implement a plan to resolve the issues with the boys' locker room and showers, bathrooms, water fountains throughout the school. You're talking about a locker project. This is talking about water fountains throughout the school, condensation issues with the gym floor. That's not part of the boys' locker room. Supply closet, holes and patches. None of that has to do. Outdated storage, broken lockers throughout the school. That's not all. So is this 1.2 million taking care of all of that stuff?
No. And I don't want you to misunderstand the document that I sent you.
This $1.2 million is just for the locker room. So
the locker.
Mark, don't pin her on a number yet on this.
I'm not.
Because again, she just got this Tecton thing a few days ago. So I mean, let's not hold her to a number.
I'm not holding her to a number. That's a number she's using. I'm using the same number. I'll use the number X from now on.
All right.
There's a number X out there to do the locker rooms, and it's now approximately 2x of what we thought it was going to be. That plan you're talking about is removing a load-bearing wall to make the weight room bigger. I don't see a weight room being bigger anywhere on addressing the issue with the boys' locker room. If you want to talk about what it's going to cost, and we had a discussion, what it was going to reasonably cost to fix the showers, because I do that, and I've actually done the same exact shower modules you have in there at WestCon last year. What it's going to cost to fix some lockers, paint the boys' room. There is an entirely different scope of work than tearing a load-bearing wall down that's 100 feet long and 30 feet high, approximate numbers, to make a bigger weight room. That's a different issue to me than trying to maintain accreditation by having a plan to fix the boys' locker room.
So the information that the board is going to base their opinion on is the building condition study that was done when we went through all 4 schools, when the new school project was just getting off the ground. And that's using that same firm, the estimates that they provided us. They already did the study. They already drew up the design plans. So we're at a point where, do we go forward with this project or not? That's, you know, we haven't put anything out to bid yet. So to have, you know, you telling us that it should be a lot cheaper than that, I mean, I don't really know. We're using the professionals that we use.
No, but the plan that you're talking about using is expanding a weight room is going to be the large majority of that number, whatever that number
it's not
is.
the large. It's not the large majority of it.
We need to hear the presentation, Mark, and then we need to go through these numbers. I think, let me start now, and then Ricky can go. I think the bigger problem is not Rosa in this thing. I'll be really honest with you. The bigger problem is, how did the school commit this money to this accreditation without going through the town? The first sentence says it all. The $300,000 worth of investments is a substantial change to what was promised to this establishment on this accreditation. That number should have been brought to the Board of Selectmen saying, hey, we're going to submit a report to this accreditation firm based on getting $600,000 or $1 million from the town to move forward. Basically, they put us on the hook for $600,000.
No, that's not true. I want you to understand the process of accreditation. When they look at everything, they look at building, they look at curriculums, they look at the structures and organizations that are in place to support the school, and they look at our budget, operating, capital, they look at our 10-year plan. They have the right to access that information just to see how we have planned. Now, if anything changes in what we've planned, we have to tell them about it. And that's the point where we're at.
But why would we?
It's not a promise. It's just,
why would you?
They want to know what we've planned, and they want to know when our plans change.
But Rosa, why would you put forth the plan of $600,000 without consulting anybody? And your first sentence in your letter says the $300K that we approved is substantial change to what you submitted. Because when we create a 10-year capital plan, as anybody would, we put through the expenses, or we put in the slots the expenses that we're expecting in those years. But what if we say no?
Well, then we just have to tell NIASC. I mean, that's the point we're at.
But it's a capital plan, so it is projected numbers. It's not.
But don't you think if you're projecting that much money and it's an accreditation that we should be running at least through the Board of Selectmen and running it through a process that, hey, this is a future need. This is part of accreditation. This is part of a process that we need to do, instead of saying, hey, I mean, and what we're seeing here, and I understand what Rosa just said, but what we're seeing here is, hey, if we don't pony up, this is a part of the accreditation. This could come back and blow on us. And yet we never really talked too much about it.
But it seems like the lines of communication got kind of frayed somewhere. And the accreditation issue, and it sounds to me that even for the Board of Ed, is kind of just coming up. And I don't think they realized it back in the middle of March, even when we were doing our deliberations. Am I wrong, Rosa?
No, that's correct. Yeah.
Okay.
I'm sorry, Ricky, go ahead.
No. So, I mean, you mentioned before, though, that you asked Tecton when you realized this 1.3 number, it could potentially be 1.3, but you only have 600.
Right. Well,
with the 600, you said this.
Yeah.
Sorry, you said the 600 wouldn't even have covered fixing the minimum to meet accreditation.
We really thought, right. No, well, let me sort. It's not sort of contingent on the accreditation is not sort of contingent on a certain amount of the project being done. So I think that's maybe what's being a little bit misconstrued here. But I think NIASC wants to see that we have plans to make improvements on that we're not just ignoring those issues, that we recognize them and we plan to make improvements on them. When the 600,000 was put into the capital plan, obviously that was way before we knew it was going to cost, 1.2 or whatever. When we found out that it was going to cost 1.2, we went back to Tecton and said, well, what parts of the project can we get done for 600? And basically, I mean, we had Tecton present at our last board meeting last week, but the answer to that was, practically nothing. So there we could get maybe, very small parts of it, but, it would kind of be a waste to do those partial parts. To get what the facilities committee had really prioritized was going to cost around 700 and something thousand.
So I guess I'm even lost even more. I appreciate your position, but I got to be honest with you. We should have voted on zero capital. This project has no start, no end, no beginning, and we just said we gave 300,000. In my opinion, we don't know 600,000, 700,000, 1.2 million, and we just put $300,000 worth of taxpayer money out there right now as boom, and I'm sort of at a loss of we did it blindly, I guess, like really blindly.
No, Glenn, if you remember, we went back, we said we would try to cover any immediate repairs and the rest of it would try to go towards coming up with the full proposal. So I think if we really look at what's happening, we're at the point where we're starting to actually get the full proposal, and it's going to come down the pipeline. Yeah. And it's not something that's going to happen, with this budget, but at least we can get ahead of it now and let the public know of this before it just kind of gets slapped at them at some sort of referendum in May next year, or if we have to do it before then, I don't know. But at least now that we all know that there's a lot of time that we have to do a proper presentation of this to the public.
I agree. Well spoken, Ricky.
To Glenn's point, though, if the fire department or Steve or anybody came to us and said, "Oh, we need X amount of money and we really don't know what we're doing or how much it's going to cost," we would have said no. If we didn't have
no, they do that shit all the time. I mean, come on, it happens all the time. It's not great. I mean, we think we have the right numbers when we do that, but then all of a sudden a roof that they ask for, 150,000 replaced, they were able to fix it for 10 grand or 14 grand. And then they got extra money for other crap. I mean, it happens.
But they did have viable quotes for that it was 200 something thousand dollars. There were viable quotes out there for it.
Right. And Rosa said that their estimate was based off of a number from probably a few years ago, which again, probably wasn't the right number to put forth, but they didn't have the number at the time that they submitted the budget.
Mark, I actually agree with Ricky.
Fair.
I actually agree with Ricky. And we'll let Steve go. I think Ricky's thought process on this is right. And I was wrong when I missed. Ricky's right. None of us has said no to the project from the start, right? We all said we got to do something, right?
But I have just a quick question though. Would the 300,000, I know that it said something about a substantial, I can't even say the word, you know what I'm trying to say.
Substantive change.
Thank you. But I guess my thought process is wouldn't that show them we have 300,000, we're going to try to do these higher level on the 3 line items or the 3 of the 7 that you listed below. Obviously we're in a completely unrealistic situation that we're all going through. The schools are closed. We have given 300,000. If there's a way to put that 300,000 to use in some of their items down there, that should at least be showing that we are absolutely trying to continue the standards.
Yeah, I would certainly assume that, something is better than nothing. So, I really don't think, we're going to lose our accreditation immediately, or we're going to lose our accreditation next year. I think, the committee wants to see that you are making progress. From a planning standpoint, what the facilities committee ultimately decides to suggest, I don't know if it makes sense to, spend 300,000 and then make the ultimate renovation more money because we've sort of piecemealed this thing. That's sort of like slapping a Band-Aid on it, and it's an expensive Band-Aid, but it's a Band-Aid nonetheless. And I don't know, if what the facilities committee, how they will most likely want to go about using that. But I mean, that's not,
I have lots of ideas on how to compartmentalize this into different phases where where
Yeah.
chunks of money could be used because there's entirely different sections of the locker room. If your building facilities committee would like to speak to me, I'm more than happy to talk to them.
I think back to Glenn's point, we need to wait to see the presentation. I mean, we've hired Tecton to come in and
Absolutely.
do this evaluation, and they have scenarios, and let's
Absolutely.
see what that comes
Yep.
out of.
I mean, I
Yeah,
can
so we would,
And
just
Mark,
throw
if you
it.
could do it for cheaper, we'll consider it.
You can put an RFP.
I will not bid on projects to the town.
Steve, you wanted to say something, Steve?
People will report.
Yeah,
me.
I did. One thing, Ricky, we did have 150,000 for that roof, and we had a contractor come in and bid it, and he told us, wait a minute, we don't have to do this roof, we can do it a different way.
No, I know. I was just
I
giving
thought
an
you were
example.
taking a cheap
Sometimes
shot.
things come in one way and they end up another, and
And sometimes they go the other way too, like this project.
I know. That was just the point I was trying to make.
Right.
All right, to circle back to this, Rosa. Have we talked to the MBC on this and people that have been involved in the school? What we did renovating of the high school and what we did 15 years ago, and do we have all the history on this? And have we talked to our town, information people like the Checos of the world and stuff like that to have history?
Go ahead,
in
Rosa.
terms of like this renovation project, no, not to my knowledge. I can check with the committee about that, but I doubt it.
I mean, he's a wealth of knowledge, like him, not like him.
Right.
He has a wealth of knowledge of the schools, how they were built, the process.
I agree with you, Glenn. I
Right.
think what we should do is for big projects like this, I don't want to, overweight the NBC with a $5,000 project, though I'm sure they'd be willing to jump in. But on big projects like this, I think we should ask Paul and his guys, hey, what do you think here? What do you think we should do? I spent 2 hours on the phone with him today talking about the new school project, trying to figure out a couple things. You're right. He's a wealth of knowledge, and I think we should do this.
I mean, and he's at our fingertips. And if Rosa and the facilities committee could sit down with Paul, it may enlighten, where we can do, what we can do, what we've done in the past, how we've done it in the past. And maybe Paul could find savings or compartmentalize like Mark is saying, or we can use some expertise.
Yeah, he might be able to come up with, he's a smart guy, so we can ask him.
I think
Yeah, I mean, I will certainly pass that along.
it would be prudent. I mean, again, none of us are saying no to the project. It's just understanding the scope, the cost, the compartmentalizing and stuff
Yeah.
like that. And Paul would be an
Right.
asset.
Right. And I just wanted to, reiterate that I don't think anybody really anticipated the scope of this project being that big. And I think that was sort of the first issue here. And then when we did find out that it was this big, getting all the details on it and seeing what our options are it was just horrible timing with how you had to vote on the capital budget. So it's just where we are right now.
So can we then have you present to us for our June meeting?
Mm-hmm.
the
Yeah,
pres-
absolutely. We would love that.
presentation, speak to Paul as well and come back to us, because I think our May is going to be jammed with this budget thing and figuring
Mhm.
out a lot of different things. So I don't think it would get the fair attention it needs.
Mhm. Mhm.
And I
No,
think
we would, yeah.
in June, Steve, does that make sense to you or no?
No, it makes a lot of sense to me.
So we put it
Yeah,
on.
no, we would love to do that.
We put it on the agenda for our June meeting. We, slate you for a good amount of time. You can coordinate who you think you need to have there to speak to this, and we can
Mhm.
give it the look it really needs.
Yeah,
I like
we
that
would really
idea.
appreciate that.
Eileen, you good?
Yes.
Ricky?
I'm good.
I think by June we'll have so many answers as well. So that'll be a great time to talk about it.
There's nothing we're gonna do in June to put this back, any money on this back in the budget.
I don't think there's any expectation of that. It's just educating ourselves on what the project is.
Exactly.
So Rosa, can you get me the details of the project from Tecton, and I'll go to Paul and ask him to review it? I think that's the first. good
Yeah, no,
first step.
definitely. Yeah.
Okay.
Yep. So thank you very much. No, that would be great. And that's all I had for you guys, unless you have other questions.
I'm good. Anybody else?
I'm good.
Was it?
I'm all set.
Thank you, Rosa.
Thank you.
All right. Any other items to come before the board that y'all can think of?
Oh, somebody else go, whoever that was.
I was saying, no, I don't have any.
Oh. Well, thanks for cutting me off then.
I don't have any.
So I just wanted to bring up a letter that Dan Dvorsets had written about, and Steve, again, thank you and the Board of Selectmen for granting us the extension so we can make the best informed decision we have. But I wanted to bring up in his letter some of the things, and I and Steve and Marcia, I really appreciate you guys coming with a very preliminary number of potential $500,000 savings. But I appreciate that you're coming to us with something ahead of time and being proactive in this. But Dan's letter mentions things like wanting up-to-date projections on the cost for special ed tuition and transportation. I think the Board Ed's working on that. Surplus overruns on the town side. I know you and Marcia are working on that. Somehow we want to talk about the implications of drawing from our general fund to mitigate expense increases in the 2021 budget, if that's even feasible. And then unemployment data for our state and town. The numbers I've been hearing in general is that like 30% of the people are out of work. I don't know how we get a better feeling for the town, or do we base ourselves on we think what the state is average is?
I think we would just have to use state averages. I don't think they report by town.
Right.
And even if they report by town, it might be if BJ's is laying people off, they'll count people who live in Danbury and work at BJ's. I don't know. But I would think that the state numbers are a very good indicator.
Right.
Of where this is
A
going.
lot of people are hurting.
Yeah.
And a lot of people are scared, and we want to, help alleviate any fears. And we may not go back to life as we know it. That's a serious concern that I have, and probably a lot of people have.
Yeah, I agree.
So that's all I had to say.
Anybody else? Ricky? All right, I also agree with Mark on that. I mean, we got to look at all things, but I think that's why we're looking at Marcia and Steve's plan of taking the excess cash and moving it towards paying down the mill rate, trying to leave everybody's expenditure line somewhat intact to the point of what can we do with the extra money. But I think things got to be looked at. I mean, we got to go through it again. We got to figure it out with the best information possible. I mean, and that's why Steve granted us the 30 days. Right, Steve? I mean, that's where we're at.
Yes, that's correct.
I mean, so we seem to be on the same page.
I think we are.
All right, so we'll meet next Wednesday and start the process. So anybody else before we go to public comment?
I'm good.
All right, so I think the next public comment was, the first one was Mr. Mueller, correct? Can we get him on?
Yes, that's what I have.
All right, Brian, you should be able to unmute yourself now.
Hi, can everybody hear me?
Yes, sir.
Yes.
Thank you very much for giving me.
We need your
couple
name and
minutes.
address first, sir.
Sure, it's Brian Mueller, 5 Joseph's Lane.
Perfect.
Just hearing through all of this, I know there's a lot of things, came up and some understanding of things, but I was a graduate of Brookfield High in 1995, and I've been invested in Brookfield school systems as a coach since 2001. And my comment is in regards to the weight room and locker room project. I've been through these all along the way. It was supposed to get renovated back in 2005. It was taken out due to Title IX issues when the girls' locker room was renovated. The boys' locker room and the weight room in general have been pretty much the only areas of this school that have never been updated, even with the increase in numbers. I know it was spoken about in terms of the shower area being a storage facility. Quite frankly, there are no other areas to store athletic equipment if you've been in that area. Again, being a football coach and baseball coach, that's my second home. There's a lot of issues in terms of watching to make sure the facilities are clean, what's going on, safety. Just for it to be pushed off again, I just would not like to see that. I know it's part of the accreditation list. This is just a matter of basic health and cleanliness that is in the main issue. And I just urge, the board to really take a look at this project and the importance of it, not just for the boys, but for the school and for the town. This is a big investment. I was part of a committee of coaches that, and I know you guys are talking about a timeline, but we went through and tried to evaluate the area that would best fit the needs for all the athletes and students. We went and talked with other schools that did something very similar to their areas to try to get the best accurate number for you guys going forward. And like I said, I just really want to express my gratitude for you guys taking a deeper look into this because I do believe it's an important project for the town and for the kids. And that's it. And I just appreciate you guys taking a very good look here at the presentation, hopefully in June. So that's it.
Thank you for your comments. We appreciate it. Thank you. All right, I think Joy was next. Joy, you
Can you
still
hear me?
on?
Yep, can you hear me?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, hi, Joy Greenstein, 10 Clover Court.
Go ahead.
Okay, so I want to piggyback off what Mr. Muller just, spoke about and what Rosa presented too. Some other really important information that this is a project that affects the whole student body. It's utilized 345 days a year for athletics, PE, and health classes. About 250 students a day use it. The weight room alone is utilized during all 4 seasons by every sport. On average, each athlete spends about 2 hours a day in the weight room. However, the weight room is overcrowded and is only able to be used for 1/3 of the year because the current equipment does not address the needs of the PE classes. We are restricted due to the current weight room and the lack of fitness and cardio equipment. We only have 1 bike, 1 treadmill, and a broken elliptical. This is just as important as any other space in the building. It's about fostering the health and well-being of our children. And unfortunately, because of the layout and the space provided, we have inefficient angles. Some really crucial facts to consider. There's no handicap accessible amenities, plumbing, lockers, or benches. There's insufficient ventilation. There's no separation in the locker room, so teams can hear each other, which builds a lot of tension. There's only 1 bathroom that's to be shared between both teams, and they must cross paths to access the bathroom in the locker room, and referees have no privacy. We really need your help to finance this whole project. Like Mr. Muller said, this has been going on for years and years. It was cut back in 2006, and it hasn't been renovated since 1974. We want to do it right, and we want to do it right the first time. We don't know of anyone who does not support or want to finally push this project forward. It's very long overdue. It will cost less to do it all at one time. Students, parents, and community members are embarrassed. The conditions are deplorable and disgraceful. We are embarrassed about having to use porta-johns during outdoor athletic events. We are embarrassed that visiting teams have to be subjected to these deplorable conditions in the locker room and porta-johns. We're the only school in our league that does not have accessible and accommodating outdoor bathrooms. It costs $3,000 a year to maintain them, the porta-johns. They're only cleaned once a week. The lighting outside at night is very bad, and parents with young children have difficulties using them. There's no changing station. The elderly have voiced their concerns about using those facilities. The girls' locker room was completed in 2007 renovation. And like I said before, the boys' locker room hasn't been renovated since 1974. Just to kind of respond to some of the board members' comments. This does have a start and an end. I'm sorry that you haven't been given all the information yet. I've wanted to, as chair of the facilities committee, since I became chair in November. In November and December and January, we were doing all of this work. When we were given the full scope of the project from Tecton, we were doing our due diligence and coming up with other options to present to maybe make it more cost effective. So we have been doing that work, and that presentation I'll look forward to presenting to you in June. So in response to Mr. Dunn, we have been doing our due diligence. We haven't been sitting on this. We've been working every month at all of our meetings and reaching out to, Steve Baldwin and all the stakeholders in trying to come up with a cost-effective and good project to put forward for everyone involved. So I look forward to presenting it in June, and I will definitely, reach out to the NBC and Paul Checo, like you had suggested. We have, his information on the history. We'll get his thoughts and ask him, what he thinks we should do, and possibly compartmentalize. And, maybe we'll reach out to Mark. He seemed to have a lot of suggestions and ideas. But again, we don't want this to be a piecemeal project, and it's not going to be very cost effective to do it in pieces. And again, this has been going on for a really long time. It's not like this is a new project. This has been on the agenda for years and years and years. So thank you.
Thank you.
Can I jump in there real quick?
Thank
Glenn?
you, Joy.
Sure.
Yeah, absolutely, Steve. Go right ahead.
Yeah, Joy, I usually don't respond directly, but my concern is not with the scope of the project or whether the project is needed. I believe it is. My concern is that this today is the first time these boards are hearing that it's an NEASC issue. This is the first time. When a month ago, we were told it's a 1.2 to 1.4 million project. If we don't get good information back in December, when we asked for it, we're gonna make decisions like the board did, and it may not be the right decision. So it behooves all of us to make sure that everyone has all of the information on every project so we can make better decisions. That's what I'm upset about, not getting the information. Thank you.
I understand that, and I respect that. And I wish I had that information as well. But I think just taking a step back and taking that out of the equation, I don't think should change things. I think we would still be in the same position as far as the facts and what we have in front of us as far as the project. I mean,
You may be right. We just have to look at it.
right. But I understand what you're saying. and I
We
agree.
can't go back and forth, and I'm not trying to be rude to Joy
Okay.
and rude to Steve, but we don't allow that to other people.
No,
And
you're right. You're right.
I don't want to, and I apologize, Joy, and I
No,
apologize.
it's fine. It's fine.
But I think to close this out, and I'm probably wrong out of my meeting here to close it out, but Steve, go through the capital process of what we got to have and when we got to vote, when we got to have this information, so we do not fall into this again next year.
Yeah, I think what we should do is what the town has been doing, and we need to work with the schools a little closer, is every single capital project that comes up to us, we have a whole template that each of the departments has to fill out. Is it needed? Is it critical? Is it a health related? Is it a security related? When was the last time we did this? What's the cost? Where do we get these estimates? What's the advantages of it? Is it a one-time cost or is it an ongoing cost? So that you guys got that book of all the projects in town. And I think we just need to do a better job next year.
Right, but what are the timelines? When do we need a project like this?
We asked our departments to give us their capital projects in December, which we then gave to the Board of Selectmen and the Board of Finance. And then we go through the process, and in February, we start talking about capital projects, picking, choosing, looking at those, trying to fit those in. Then you do the operating budget, and then you go back and you fit in as much as you can on the capital.
And our deadline for voting the capital is when?
It's 45 days before the vote, because we have to have a town meeting, 45 days. So 45 days before May 19th, that's end of February. So you have to have the capital finished by the end of February at the latest.
Right, so we don't run into this next year, so we're all on the same page, right? This is when we need this information.
Yep.
It has to get to you first, so you approve it before it comes to us, correct?
Yeah, but we send you all the information we get. But yeah, we want it in
Steve, good
December.
about it. Steve, I'm not complaining, I'm not like criticizing, I'm just
No, you're
saying,
not.
everybody needs to understand these timelines, so we don't get in this position that we're in now where we're getting data in April
Yeah.
that really we needed back in February. And I get people were working. I understand that it might not have fit, but we got to understand the guidelines of our charter, correct?
Correct. Right. And we possibly could have avoided this issue if we had more information back then. And these things happen. We can work through it. We'll, you know, every board has been very helpful and very supportive of things that need to be done. And I'm very thankful that you guys take so much care at it.
Thank you. All right. Anything before we go, people?
I'm good.
Mark? Make the motion.
I'll make a motion to adjourn.
I'll second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Bye.
Aye.